Time now for another edition of Bases and Balls with Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus with us, brought to you by our good friends at NECA IBEW. So, Rosey, the team is red hot, and I wanted to talk about a couple of aspects of the team. And there were so many question marks in the offseason the last couple of years about the outfield. Now it looks like we've got some nice young outfielders, beautiful pieces, and some mainstays going forward. It looks to be a strength when you look at depth in this position as contrast to a couple of years ago. Talk about these guys you've seen in the outfield this year.
As contrast to a couple of years ago, maybe spring training, Ray. You're right. Going back to spring training, they were still trying to sort through it. And now with the call up last night of Will Brennan, and look, it was his major league debut, so we don't know how it's going to turn out long term, but they're certainly very high on him. And he's kind of like a Stephen Kwan type in terms of, maybe a year or two ago outside the organization, not a whole lot of people were talking about him as a big time prospect, but all he's done is hit and put up good numbers wherever he's been. And they really like him inside the organization because he's what is becoming the prototypical young hitter for Cleveland: big contact, line drives, occasional power, a little bit more power than Kwan. At least that's what he's shown so far. But yeah, you look at, the starting outfield last night: Kwan, Straw, and Brennan. Oscar Gonzalez has had a big year, and he's the DH last night. So, gosh, it's nice to have problems like that. And again, we don't know how it's going to pan out in the future, but you feel real good about certainly Kwan, Gonzalez, and Straw, and then maybe Brennan's a part of that mix too. And there's others down there, George Valera, that they're very high on in the minor leagues. So it really has turned. For the longest time, we're talking about middle infielders all the time, but maybe outfield is starting to produce a lot of good stuff too.
Yeah, I love these young outfielders. And Rosey, as you know, we've seen most of these guys come right up through Akron not too long ago. So we've had a chance to see the Will Brennans and the Stephen Kwans, and love the contact, like you said, of hitting the baseball. Let's also go to the pitching staff. And I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse here, but we have a nice lead in the Central, and hopefully we'll get into the playoffs again. This team from top to bottom and that pitching staff, I feel, is really set with the starters. And then we've almost made it a 6-inning game with Stefan, Karinchak, and Clase. I love where our pitching staff is right now.
It's in a very good place, Ray. And you start now to think about how are they going to line things up for the postseason and who's going to be on the roster for that wild card series. There might be a good reliever or two who's not on the roster, and you're only going to need 3 starting pitchers. So, you got to figure it's Bieber, McKenzie, Quantrill, maybe in that order, maybe not, but there would be your 3 starters. But Aaron Savali threw the ball great the other night. Zach Plesac, if they're looking forward to getting him back sometime next week, maybe. So there's some depth there too. And you hit on the bullpen looking awfully strong. And it's exciting right now to see the depth of arms that they have on that staff.
Trevor Stephan is the guy that has really come on for us. Maybe not to you, Rosey, but to most of our fans. Okay, Stephan, he's one of those pieces. He'll fit in. He's really become a lights out guy in the last couple of months.
Yeah. And it's nice to, before Karinchak really came on, you would think about closing some games with him if Clase needed a night off. And that's a great compliment to him. But where he sits now in the 7th, 8th innings, somewhere in there, when he gets that good splitter going and he's got a power arm, it's just one more piece on those nights where, especially, that doesn't happen so much in the postseason because you have some off days, but certainly during the regular season, there's days where certain guys can't pitch because they pitched a lot in recent games. So it's great to have some depth in those areas.
With us as Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus. Bases and Balls brought to you by NECA IBEW. Rosey, you mentioned the postseason. Educate us all a little bit, because the postseason is different this year than it has been. There's a couple more wild card entries in there. And if we do win the Central Division, I'm not sure how it all shakes out. Do we have the whole series on our home ballpark? How's it all work?
Well, there'll be a test on this after we're done, Ray. Um, it's interesting this year because even though the Guardians are going to win the Central Division, they'll still have to play the wild card round. What they did is they're giving the teams with the two best records among the three division winners, they'll get buys right into the American League Division Series. And then that third division winner, the Guardians, they'll have to play in the wild card round, which features the other three teams that made it as wild card teams. And the higher seed, because they won a division, the Guardians are a higher seed, they will have all three games of a best of three series at Progressive Field. So that's exciting. That'll be the weekend. I believe the dates are October 7th, 8th, and 9th, or 8th, 9th, and 10th, whatever that Friday, Saturday, Sunday is. They'll have all those games at home, which is exciting. So, we'll see how much of a difference that makes. They've been good anywhere, whether they're on the road or at home, but it's always nice to play in front of the home fans, and it's great for the fans.
And right now, we still have a couple of weeks to go in the regular season here. But right now, those other three teams look like in some order, they're going to be what? Toronto, Tampa, and Seattle is probably what we're looking at with those other three teams.
Yeah, I think as of yesterday, it would have been the Guardians and Mariners who would play in that round. But I think last week in 7 days, it might have changed 5 times because they're in a pretty good dogfight, those three. I'm not sure among those three who wants to play Cleveland, who thinks they have the best matchup, but we'll see. I think that each matchup, whether it's Tampa Bay, Seattle, or the Blue Jays, presents its unique share of challenges, but also some advantages for Cleveland. So it'll be interesting when it finally is said and done, which might not be till the last day of the season, to see who the Guardians are playing.
All right, Rosey, let's close it out. Texas Rangers, a team that's changed managers. They've had a tough year. That's the weekend for us.
Yeah, and it's coming off of the Chicago series, and we'll see how things go tonight. But it's been a really good series already for Cleveland. They've been so good this year about not letting whatever happened the series before impact the current series. And I think you'll see the same thing in Texas. They'll probably have to play some, the mind games of tricking themselves into making it feel big. But here's the thing, right? They have a chance to wrap up the division. They're going to play good baseball, at least be attentive, and everything that's made this season go well for them, all the little things, they'll be ready to go. And maybe they'll need a reminder, maybe they won't, but if they do, Terry Francona will certainly make them aware of how important the games are, but they know it. Just talking to players yesterday, Shane Bieber in particular, they are so locked in on wrapping this thing up. And then not only wrapping this thing up for the regular season and winning a division, but they're really excited to see what they can do in the playoffs. They think some teams they match up with really well, and there's going to be some teams that don't want to play Cleveland at all.
I agree with you 100%. Jim Rosenhaus, Guardians broadcaster, bases and balls. He joins us each week here on WAKR. Rosey, as always, thank you for carving out some time with us here in Akron, and we'll reconnect with you again next week.
You got it, Ray. Thank you.